Hello Mila, hello Jack. Hello everybody else who's watching, and welcome to Storytime with Grandad. Today's book is from Paddington Bear, and it is Paddington's Party Tricks. One day, Paddington discovered that it was Mr. Gruber's birthday, so he invited his friend round for tea. Having broken the news to the Browns, he disappeared into the garden, clutching a book of party tricks. "I don't like the look of that," said Mrs. Bird as she set about baking some cakes. "That bear knows quite enough tricks as it is." "I'll tell you something else," said Mrs. Brown. "Mr. Curry's spotted him. I wouldn't mind betting he's invited himself along too, and that'll spoil everything." Mr. Gruber's face fell when he arrived at number 32 Windsor Gardens and found the Browns' neighbour already occupying the seat of honour, but he was much too polite to say anything. "There's only one thing nicer than a cake fresh from the oven," said Mr. Curry, helping himself from the table, "and that's two. Tell that bear to hurry up, I'm hungry." The Browns exchanged unhappy glances, but before Mr. Brown had a chance to say anything, Paddington appeared from behind the curtains. "I would like to begin with a song," he announced. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Brown. "Is that wise?" "I shall do it without moving my lips," said Paddington firmly. And the next moment he launched into the first words of "Many brave hearts are asleep in the deep, 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 deep." "It's Paddington's old gramophone," whispered Jonathan. "The needle must be stuck in a groove," agreed Judy. "Not a very good start," grumbled Mr. Curry. "I shall have another cake to make up for it." When Paddington appeared again, he was dragging a rod with a large black ball on the other end. Mrs. Bird watched anxiously as he struggled to lift it. "I hope that bear doesn't do himself a mischief," she whispered. Mr. Gruber led the applause as Paddington at last managed to raise the object above his head, and even Mr. Curry paused before reaching for another cake. "Of course, that's one advantage of being short," he said grudgingly. "It didn't have far to go." Reaching inside his duffel coat for a handkerchief in order to mop his brow, Paddington let go of the rod, and it floated gently up towards the ceiling. "Fancy painting a pair of balloons black and then pretending they weigh a ton," snorted Mr. Curry, helping himself to yet another cake. "I hope the next trick's better. That one didn't fool me for a moment." "Oh, it will be, Mr. Curry," said Paddington earnestly. "You wait and see." The others watched nervously as Paddington piled the remaining cakes onto a large plate, which he then balanced on top of his head. Having covered it with a cloth, he waved a magic wand in the air several times. "Abracadabra!" he exclaimed, removing the cloth. "Goodness!" said Mrs. Brown. "They've vanished." "The quickness of the paw deceives the eye," said Mr. Gruber over the applause. "It wasn't that quick," barked Mr. Curry suspiciously. "Besides, he's got cream all over his whiskers." "Perhaps I could make you a cup of tea instead, Mr. Curry," said Paddington. "I'll put the kettle on." When he returned, he had a cup and saucer balanced on the end of a stick. "That's the oldest trick in the world," growled Mr. Curry, gluing a cup and saucer together. "Here, give me that. I'll show you." No one knew what happened next, but the crash of breaking china and the bellow of rage from Mr. Curry as he made a dash for the front door said it all. Oh dear, Mrs. Brown surveyed the mess and the empty table. "It doesn't seem to have been much of a birthday party." "Never mind," said Mr. Gruber. "I've enjoyed myself no end, and perhaps young Brown has some more tricks up his sleeve." "I've saved the best one until last," said Paddington. I just hope my abracadabra worked. Paddington lifted up the cloth he'd used earlier, and, lo and behold, there were the missing cakes. It only goes to show, said Mr. Gruber, the quickness of the paw certainly does deceive the eye. And still waters run deep, said Mrs. Bird. Her eagle eyes had just spotted a warning note in Paddington's book. Never use hot water on the china, it said, otherwise the glue may melt. If you ask me, there's a lot more to that bear's abracadabra than meets anyone's eye. The end. Goodbye, Mila. Goodbye, Jack. I'll see you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.